What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest on to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. Before I bring our special guest in, if you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on a video. Lets us know we're doing a good job. If you want to support us a little bit more, you can head over to skywatcher.threadless.com. We've got all kinds of shirts and swag and fun stuff there you can pick up. And then if you really want to support us, you can go over to skywatchusa.com and pick up a product or buy it from your favorite dealer. We do have a bunch of stuff on sale as well, so head over there. You can check it out. We also have our new clearance section, so if you want to get something at a good price and we're flushing it out, go see what you can pick up over there. All right. Well, I know there's a lot of people that are looking forward to today's episode, including myself. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in Chris. Let me make Chris bigger. Boom. There's Chris. Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good, guys. How are you today, Kevin?
Good. So for those of you who don't know who our guest is, this is Chris Montemayor, right? Is that the
Montemayor?
Yeah, Montemayor of Takahashi, America. And if you've been to NE for some of the trade shows, you've probably met Chris and the rest of the Takahashi crew before at the booth. But if you really want to know stuff, Chris is generally the guy to pick his brain about it. So let's see. Sorry, are you saying Chris's volume is low or my volume is low? Well, we could punch it up a little bit if the volume's too. We'll work it out. So, all right, Chris. So I start this the same way I do every episode. And how did you get started in astronomy to the point now you are working for Takahashi?
Not in the way that anybody would think. When I was about 10 years old, I had an uncle. Well, I still have an Uncle Scott. He was a maintenance employee at the University of Texas Physical Plant. The University of Texas has 2 observatory domes there on different buildings in downtown Austin. And so they used to have public viewings and public star parties on Saturday nights. Because he was the maintenance person for those buildings, he got to know some of the astronomers and then started going to the star parties and the viewings himself. And then as I got a little older, he started to bring me along. And I remember not just getting to go and look through, their big refractors and stuff like that, but also, there's the Stardate, which I guess is yeah. So at the time, there was a phone number that you could call and you could listen to Stardate on the phone, and it was recorded there at the University of Texas and stuff like that. So I got to meet a lot of those people and spend some time around them when I was really, really young. And then later I got really interested in music and grew up and became a band director and a professional percussionist. And I retired and I needed something to do. And, I had a kind of a hard bent for Takahashi telescopes and thought it would be fun to work here. And after a bunch of interviews, I do work here. So
it always surprises me. And you talk to anybody in the telescope world and you bring up the name Takahashi, they automatically know what you're talking about. Tak is just one of those brands where there's like a cult following to it. And what I've always found funny is any friend of mine who has a Takahashi doesn't just have one Takahashi. It's like a thing where once you're in it, you're part of the club there. Have you found that to be true working with them as well, or?
Yes, so we have a number of customers. There's like at least 5 of them that I can think of right off the top of my head, literally have rooms of Takahashi telescopes on Takahashi mounts in complete setups. Not just that. I mean, every single thing. Like this guy named Rich Oberg has probably everything we've ever made. I'm assuming, from the photos that I've seen and everything like that. And he's always looking for parts, so he calls me, once a month, once every 3 weeks, something like that. And but there's a number of people that are really, really like that, and I'm kind of bad about that too. So.
Yeah, you've got some of your collection behind you as well. But yeah, what do you find? So Takahashi Takahashi has been around for decades. It's one of probably the longest standing telescope brands on the market still. Um, but what do you feel sets Takahashi apart from many other brands? Because there are some, there's a lot of very good quality stuff on the market, but Tak has some really unique approaches and products that you don't find that are really competed with too heavily.
Yeah. So the first thing is a lot of the products are built in such a way so that they last a very long time. We get stuff in the shop from the 70s, to be cleaned and collimated and returned. And people bought those things in 1973. They've used them continuously until this time. There's a video on YouTube that a lot of people send to me because they think that I've never seen it, but I see it all the time, kind of. Where there's a fellow that has a video. It's like the good and the bad of Takahashi, and one of the things that he complains about is, well, on one hand he says, optically speaking, this has been a fantastic telescope, but on the other hand, the focuser has some slop in it and everything like that. But that guy didn't know that the focusers are built in such a way so that there's little adjusting rub screws, and they have like little Delrin tips on them. So it's a replaceable wear item. And it takes 25 years for those things to wear out. But once they do, we have those parts and we can replace them. So that returns that telescope to being what it was, when it was new. So anyway, that guy made the video, sold that telescope to somebody else. That person sent it into us for service. We fixed it and sent it back to that person, and he loves it. And now that it's in the like new condition again. But
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed with most Takahashis. So I've got some friends who have the FS 102, the FS 128, the legendary FS 152s. They're from the 90s, and they're still holding up as world class optics, and even the mechanics. While I find the Takahashi mechanics, having owned them, are relatively simple, it's actually simple in a good way. It's not over complicated. It's just engineered well.
Right.
End of story.
It's a different kind of design. They really do want to build something that lasts for a long time. And even like, and I do want to talk about, like the design of some of the telescopes in just a minute, but like a Takahashi 2-inch mirror diagonal, you know, this is the barrel for a Takahashi 2-inch mirror diagonal. And it's this really heavy chrome plate. And this particular one is 20 years old. And, it has these little bitty tiny marks from where the stainless steel screws set into it, but they really don't wear down, So we still have, like, I have a number of 20-year-old diagonals that I still use. And I have new ones too, but they just last seemingly forever. But you did mention how some of our stuff is a little bit different in optical terms. And a really good example of that, I think, is the TOA telescope series. That's a wide airspace triplet with three individually collimatable lenses in this enormous lens cell. Those telescopes are very difficult to manufacture. They're very difficult to collimate. But the wide airspace. So anyway, because they're hard to make, I think, and because they're hard to collimate, a lot of other companies really don't make a telescope that's like that. But the wide airspace design with the three individual collimatable lenses produces smaller spot sizes than a lot of other designs, but it also has virtually no chromatic aberration in a refractor design and almost no spherical aberration. So, when you look through that telescope, objects really have a more of a three-dimensional presentation. And then the other crazy thing is those telescopes don't have to be in focus to have apochromatic performance. You can rack in and out of focus, and stars break down into diffraction circles, but colors don't progress through the circles, which is a pretty wild thing. And a lot of people don't realize that until you kind of point it out to them. But once they see it, then it's a big draw for them to want that kind of telescope.
Yeah. Someone was asking, which I think it's a good question, particularly when it comes to Takahashi and designs. It says, every time I see a Takahashi, it's a refractor. Do they make Schmidt-Cassegrains, Newtonians, or anything else? And you guys do produce a couple collections of reflectors that are rather unique as well.
So we have Mulan telescopes, which are reflector telescopes. They're very small Dahl-Kirkham telescopes. So those telescopes have no corrector plate and only two really high quality mirrors in them. We also have the Epsilon telescope series, which is more optimized as an astrograph. Once again, open tube Newtonian parabolic mirrors and then a corrector built into the draw tube, which you can exchange for a 1.5 extender. So we do have those telescopes. Takahashi did produce for a very short time a TSC 225 Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope, and those are really highly sought after on the used market. We have one of those at our shop in Houston, and I brought it home to use it one time because it's literally like a holy relic, even at work. So, but we produce a bunch of different telescopes, not just refractor telescopes.
Mm-hmm. The refractors are, you know how the refractor world is. We like to brag about our refractors. Here's a quick question for you. Hi, Chris. The legendary FSQ 106 EDX Mark IV has been discontinued. Can you tell us what is coming to replace it?
The answer is I know everything about what is coming to replace it, but I am not allowed to talk to you about them in really specific terms at this moment. FSQ 106s were discontinued because at this point it's a dated design. They have spot sizes that are larger than the pixel sizes of most modern cameras. And in order to keep us at the sort of the forefront of optical technology, we're trying to produce telescopes that have a higher resolution, smaller spot sizes, better color performance overall. So I can tell you that the replacement for those telescopes will do all of those things. It is a better match. It's going to be a telescope that will outperform your astronomy camera.
And so that's kind of what just any major company, that's kind of the goal. Yeah. It's trying to keep up with whatever Sony can produce. And
exactly.
It's getting harder to do. So.
Well, I mean, there's a camera that came out pretty recently, a QHY camera with a little 8-position filter wheel, and it has a sensor that's the size of a postage stamp or something like that. But it has like 2.83 micron pixels. And then somebody told me the other day that they're coming out with cameras that even have smaller pixels, And the truth is once you get below a certain pixel size, a lot of telescopes really don't support that, very well. And so it's important to really have a good idea of how the camera works versus what the telescope does so that you can combine them together for your kind of best results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I really like about Takahashi's are, and this is just kind of in general, but you guys are one of the few companies that still, and we do too, we're going to bring new ones out, but you're one of the few companies that make doublet apo refractors. And I think those, in this day and age, you see everything. It's like, oh, I got this triplet, and there's so many triplets, and you can get them in all different sizes. But for people who are doing visual, you really don't need to have the expense and the heft of these high-end triplets. A really nice little doublet is a perfect little scope, and they're high contrast. And one thing I noticed when I've owned 4 Takahashi doublets at this point, 260s, the 76, which I've still got, and the 100DZ, which I know people here have asked about, which is probably one of the best ones out there. But they're so dark. Like the background is just black, and there's no scatter on these things.
So I'm going to tell you something that might get me in a little bit of trouble. We produce a telescope called the TSA 120, which is a close airspace triplet. We also produce a telescope, which you just mentioned, which is the FC 100DZ telescope. I have a personal preference to use the DZ versus the TSA 120. The TSA 120 does have essentially perfect color correction when it's at the focus point. The DZ does not have perfect color correction because it is just a doublet telescope. But the doublet telescope only has 2 lenses in it, and one of the lenses is fluorite. So it allows a lot of light to pass through that design. And you're correct. The way that you just mentioned you want to see space is really the way that I want to see space too. I want the background to be as dark as possible. And I want the object that I'm trying to look at be as bright and as colorful as possible. So this is just my personal preference, but I prefer to use the FC100DZ over the TSA 120. However, I do have TOA 130s. And if I'm going to get really hardcore, then I'm going to go and dig out the TOA 130. But no, I agree with you. You know, that's a really cool thing about the Mulan telescope design. It's a really cool thing about the doublet telescope designs, and I think that that's one of the reasons that they've been so popular for so long, because they're these little bitty telescopes with jet black backgrounds, and they act like larger aperture telescopes.
They really do. And that was even our doublets. The talk fluorites are really nice. We have our Evo Star doublets, which are quite popular, but I don't understand why more companies don't make high quality apo doublets. Like, for the visual people out there, that's really what you want. They're lightweight, they cool quickly, they don't really have to be serviced. Doublets just kind of like pop together and they're happy. It's just how high end do you want it? And I owned the FC100DZ, and I've had people ask me about it here. It's the best 4-inch telescope, period. Like, it's lightweight, it's incredibly sharp. I would almost go out to say the DZ is almost too well corrected. Like, the colors are like ice. I mean, there's no color despair, any issues with it.
You look at the moon, and the moon is bright and white and milky, and then the space around it is just a blackness. Yeah.
There's no scatter. It's your object in black. And I see it with like the Herschel wedge and solar filters as well. Even on my 76, it's object in black. And if you have a chance, that's the thing that stands out the most when you're using these fluorite doublets. Someone actually, this kind of asked a question which actually links to this. Our Takahashi optics, probably particularly fluorite, you could probably tell the story a little bit better, outsourced to Nikon.
It's not Nikon, it's Canon.
Yeah.
Canon has an optical division that builds lenses to our specifications.
And so for those who don't know, a lot of major manufacturers, not that TOC isn't, but mass production like Skywatcher and William Optics and Stellar View and a lot of the big brands like that, we're using like ED glass, like whether it's FPL 53, FCD 100, FPL 55, all the really good stuff. TOC uses that on a lot of their scopes as well, but there's the doublets are all fluorite lenses. Well, one of them is, not both of them, but that's really unique because they have to go to Canon to source it, where Canon literally grows the crystal and then you make it into a lens. So it's really kind of a sweet little thing. Is there a reason TOC has stuck with fluorite for the doublets and not moved them into the triplets, or
So that is not exactly correct. In my backyard right now is a FCT 65D, and that is a 65 millimeter fluorite triplet. And it has great color. Actually, the color performance of that is a little bit better than a TSA 120 overall. But where it really shines is in use as an astrograph telescope. Mm-hmm. We produced something for a really short time, and I can't tease things that are going to come in the future. But I am going to show you this because this is one of my favorite things. And I don't know if you guys can see this. This is my FCT 76 from 1998. Okay. And this is a 76 millimeter fluorite triplet. So, but these are incredibly rare. But this is one of my very favorite telescopes to use because of all of the things that you just mentioned. Yeah. It's a triplet, but has all of the advantages of the fluorite doublets.
And that's the FCT series.
Yeah. So there was an earlier FCT series, which was optimized as a visual telescope. There was a FCT 125 telescope. There was a 76 millimeter telescope. There was a FCT 150 telescope, which was the precursor to the current TOA series.
I've seen the FCT 150 in person. It's like a freaking battleship of a telescope. They're so heavy. And there's 100 out there, isn't there?
FCT 152s or
FCT 100.
yes, you're correct about that.
But they are hard to find. Now, in current production, the only FCT that's currently existing that we're allowed to know about is the new 65 that you just mentioned.
Right.
Let's see. Is there a reason Takahashi decides, because fluorite's very difficult to work with, it's very brittle material, is there a reason they stick with fluorite as opposed to the modern glass types? Or
Well, once again, fluorite has the advantage of allowing more light to pass through the substrate itself than a bunch of other materials. So that's one of the reasons why they're so bright, I think, and so colorful. And Takahashi America is part of Texas Nautical Repair, and we have a walk-in store in Houston. It's called Land, Sea, and Sky. That store is actually a really big binocular store, and we're Swarovski Optics Dealer of the Year, Zeiss Dealer of the Year in the last couple of years. But Zeiss, Swarovski NL Pure binoculars are very, very popular because of the colors and the brightness of their binoculars. And those also use fluorite lenses. And so I think that for certain people, they're really looking for that kind of view. And if you're looking for that kind of view, then we have the right thing for you. You know.
That actually leads me to a question I've wanted to ask. I just started dipping my toe into the Takahashi family about 2 years ago. That's when I got my first one. What would you say to someone who's coming into the world of Takahashi? Because it is rather unique. The rings or the adapters and accessories can be a little complicated to work with. But as someone who's like, hey, I'm looking at a Takahashi, I don't know much about them, but I know they're good. Mm-hmm. I know you deal with people like this a lot. What would be your responses? I'm looking for some high quality scope, maybe for visual or imaging. How do you kind of introduce people to the Takahashi family?
The first thing I try to do if somebody calls and is asking that kind of question is I try to, during the phone call, and let me take a step back. We are very focused on the customer, the end customer. We feel very strongly that it is important for the customers to not have to figure out things on their own. We produce system charts, you take this ring and you put it together and everything like that. And those system charts do not have millimeter lengths of any of the parts. They don't have thread sizes of any of the parts. That's not because we're trying to hide that information. The reason is because we don't think customers should be burdened by trying to figure that stuff out. The system chart tells you it's this telescope and this accessory, and we always produce a specifically sized spacing tube to go onto the back of those things, so that almost every product that we have, when you use it in an astrograph format, ends at female M54 threads and has a specific metal back distance of 56.2 millimeters. So once you have one camera that's properly configured, you can swap it across a number of different telescopes so that you can have different focal ratios and different focal lengths. The reason that I have a job is so that if you have questions about Takahashi telescopes or how to employ them, you don't have to tease those things out for yourself. You can call and talk to a person, and yes, that person is usually me, and it's my job to figure those things out for you so that you have a configuration that you know works in the end. So we really, Yu Hashimoto has told me on several occasions, customers should not have to have millimeter rulers and calculators in order to enjoy their telescopes. And we, are the people to make sure that you don't have to worry about those things. Mm-hmm. It's my job to answer those questions for you. I feel like now I should have brought a system chart and said, okay, this is how these things go, and this is what you're going to end up with every time. But be completely aware that if you ever have questions, you can call us, you can email us. I generally get back to everybody the same day. If things are really wild, it might take me until the next day or so. But we're here to answer those questions and to get that stuff figured out for you.
Yeah. here's a question for you personally. What's your personal setup?
Which one?
Yeah. Welcome to be a professional in the telescope industry. Which scope?
So the telescopes that I have behind me and the telescopes that are in my office, the next door down, FOA 60Q, FCT 65D with the FU reducer. I have my FCT 76. I have a Sky 90. I have a FSQ 106N. I have a EDX3 and an EDX4 in a shelf in the other room. I have a TOA 130 that is set up just for visual, and I have a FC 100DZ. Not all of those telescopes are here at my house right now, and that's because I have a observatory that I built for myself in West Texas. So some of the stuff is out there.
Nice.
So those are the telescopes that I look through, and then I have a whole different set of telescopes for astrophotography.
Yep. Welcome to the club. They do just kind of appear though after when you do this a lot. They tend to just accumulate. So
well, I mean, literally, they're just different tools. You know,
yeah, that's how I've always looked at it.
If I'm going to look through a telescope, I'm going to use one of our telescopes that are designed as a visual telescope. If I'm going to take photos with the telescope, well, we have a bunch of products that are astrograph products, you know, and those telescopes are, the reason you end up with more than one telescope is because you want a different field of view. You want a different level of magnification. Sometimes you need a faster telescope because you have time constraints, you know, and there, I can discuss that forever and ever. But like when I go to my observatory in West Texas, a lot of times I take a baby cube with a reducer. That's natively a 450 millimeter telescope at f5. Our Epsilon 130 has the same 450 millimeter field of view, but it's a f3.3 telescope. So if I'm there for 2 or 3 days, I usually take the Epsilon telescope so that I can get as much data in as short amount of time as possible. And if I'm going to be there for a little bit longer time, then I'm going to take a telescope that's a little bit slower because honestly, it's easier to clean when I bring it home. You know, so different tools for different jobs.
If you had someone come in and they're like, I want a nice, not too heavy, just observing in my backyard, what one of the refractors do you generally recommend for something small like that?
For a lot of general purpose use, I would say one of the FC 100 telescopes. I have a preference for the DZ, but the other two. So right now there's 3 different versions of FC 100 telescopes. 2 of them are earlier design that have the fluorite lens on the inside, and they're 740 millimeters of focal length. I think that that's a good general purpose telescope. Sorry, my dog is coughing. If you want a telescope that has a little bit crisper, clearer view with a little bit of a better color correction, then the FC100DZ is 800 millimeters of focal length. It has the fluorite as the objective lens. And so that's a little more of a planetary kind of, because I really feel strongly that telescopes need to have 800 or 900 millimeters of focal length natively to be the beginning of a good planetary viewing setup.
Yeah. I really like the FC refractors. That's why I still have the 76, even though my 76, the DS, is a little heavier and overbuilt, but they're really lightweight for what they are, which if you guys are doing observing, that's been a big selling point to me for the FC 100, the FC 76s that are out, is they weigh nothing for what they are. So they're really cute little things.
my DZ gets a lot of use, and honestly, I kind of abuse that telescope. It tends to live in the backseat of my car, you know, so it's just in the back of my car with the seatbelt around. I mean, it's in a padded bag, but you know, so it gets driven back and forth, and if I'm out somewhere, it's in the car, so I just use it, you know.
Yeah. There are a bunch of questions coming in.
Please.
This is a good one for any professional in the industry. What's your opinion on the flashlight test?
I'm not exactly sure that I know what that is.
Oh, you guys don't deal with that?
No, no.
Flashlight test is when you get a brand new telescope and you shine a flashlight down there and you check for dust.
Um, Takahashi telescopes are not sealed off from the elements. They are handmade telescopes built at our factory in Japan. They're shipped to us in a container shipment that takes about a month to arrive. Every now and then, a telescope might have some dust in it, but if you have an issue with that, we have a service department and we have a 5-year warranty, and we will take care of those things.
Yeah. That's how most scopes are, by the way, guys, where we do our best, and this is almost every manufacturer I can think of. We do our best to make sure that these things are clean and spotless when you get them, but they're not assembled in like a NASA level clean room.
Yeah, exactly.
They are done in a clean environment, and everyone's wearing gloves and stuff like that. So odds are, if you get a scope and it has a light amount of dust, you can't do anything about that unless you're in some high level lab. But most manufacturers you're going to get a lens that's immaculate, maybe a little bit of light dust, but there's not going to be fingerprints, there's not going to be scratches, there's not going to be scuffs. It's just dust that exists everywhere. So no one is free from that. We try our best though to make sure they're amazing. But let's see. Can you explain how the FC76 objective lens thing works? Couldn't understand it properly when I saw it on the market. I think it's the FC76D lens assembly that can be added to like the 60s.
So those telescopes are doublet telescopes, and a number of our doublet telescopes have extenders which thread into the body of the telescopes. And we call those, a lot of those have what we refer as a Q version or a Q extended version. So it's a doublet telescope with a Q extender. So this is a FOA 60Q telescope. And natively, this telescope is 530 millimeters of focal length and it's f8. With the Q extender, it's 901 millimeters of focal length and it is a f15 telescope. Okay, so I'm not sure if that answers the question in the way that they're hoping, but if they can clarify that a little bit, I'm happy to.
I think the one they're referring to is, so for those of you who are aware, one of the most popular refractors Talk makes, one of the most abundant, is the FS60. But you guys not too long ago had the FC76s come out, the D models.
Yeah.
And you can buy the objective portion by itself, thread the 60s lens off, and thread this new 76 extension on. And now you
that's correct. So I'm sorry, I did not understand the question correctly. There is a 60 millimeter version of the telescope. You can take off the lens cell and replace it with a larger 76 millimeter version, and it threads into the same body. Something that those guys need to know is that the older FS 60 like CB telescopes and those are actually being replaced by the newer versions. So there's a FCT 65D telescope, which is a fluorite triplet refractor. It has a body which gets bigger at the back to the 95 millimeter tube size. And the reason is because there's a reducer that threads internally into the telescope, okay? The FS60 and the FS76 telescopes actually have a new version that supersedes the previous versions. And all three of those telescopes have the same 95 millimeter bump out. And there is a 0.65 fluorite reducer for all three of those telescopes. So some of those will be discontinued as time goes on.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's asking an extension of that. So yes, if you have a 60 CB, you can find, I don't think they're
Q extender module. There's a couple of different ways. You can get a Q extender module. There is also the 1.6 extender Q, which was introduced with the FSQ-106N and the Sky 90 telescope, can be adapted to work on a lot of those older telescopes. Takahashi introduced about a year ago a 2 times ortho extender and a 4 times ortho extender. And once again, if you go and look at the system charts, which can be confusing for those extenders, there is a way to extend those small telescopes to pretty good, 1,000 millimeter focal lengths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the Q module come with the 60 that comes with the 60 work on the newly added 76?
No.
There's a lot of combos out there. So.
Yes. Like the telescope that I was just talking about, the FOA 60Q is available as just the FOA 60 telescope without the extender. In theory, you should be able to get a 1.7 extender Q module to thread into that. We've just not been receiving those because the factory's been sending us either FOA 60 telescopes or FOA 60Q telescopes with the extender module included as part of the telescope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have more questions on that, guys, you can call Chris over there.
Yeah, please.
Let's see. I imagine Takahashi has a lot of visual scopes. Are there models specific for astrophotography like the Edge HDs from Celestron?
Yes, actually. So I would say that epsilon telescopes are much further along the path to being a pure astrograph than a lot of the typical refractor telescopes. For instance, with the epsilon telescope, like an epsilon 180, it says in the manual that you must use those telescopes with eyepieces that have focal lengths that are shorter than 12.5 millimeters. Because if you don't, then you can see the shadow of the secondary mirror while you're looking.
Except pupil gets big. So.
Right. So you can use those telescopes as visual telescopes, but their wide field, their design is wide field astrographs. They're optimized with very low focal ratios, f2.8 or f3.3. So they really do, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of other people, work best as astrographs instead of regular visual telescopes. And then we have other telescopes that are kind of in between. So on one hand, TOA 130 might be the nicest, 1,000 millimeter refractor that you can get to use as a visual telescope. But about 4 years ago, we introduced a TOA 645 flattener for those telescopes, the TOA 130 and the TOA 150. And they produce very, very small spot sizes. And that's a setup that's designed to literally outperform any astronomy camera that you might want to pair with that telescope. So a TOA 130 or 150 with a TOA 645 flattener makes an outrageous astrograph, which is probably the highest resolution astrograph that you can purchase right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then on the part with the Edge HD, you do have the So for those who don't know, there's two types of reflectors. There's the epsilons, which are like a Newtonian design, and then there's the Mulans, which Chris had mentioned earlier. Those are dull Kirkhams. But all the current epsilons, I'm sorry, the Mulans. Well, the Mulan comes in 4 sizes: 180, 210, 250, and 300s. But I think now the big guys, the 250 and the 300s, those have correctors built into the baffle tubes.
So when the Mulan, so first of all, we're only producing Mulan 180s and Mulan 210s at this moment. Okay, so we are not producing Mulan 250s or Mulan 300s right now. A lot of people are really excited for a return of some of those larger telescopes. The original versions of the Mulan 250 and the Mulan 300 telescopes had straight through baffle tubes with no additional corrector lenses in them, okay? And I used to own a Mulan 300 telescope with a straight through baffle tube. A little bit later, I found used what we call a S baffle tube, which was a replacement for the original straight through baffle tube. And that replacement had 3 corrector lenses in it. Okay, so you could take your original Mulan 300, you could put a S baffle tube into it, and that optically updates it to be the same telescope as the modern Mulan 300 CRS telescope. Okay, the 3 lenses produce a little bit flatter field for photography. and they increased the performance of the telescope with eyepieces that were popular for people to use with that telescope, which was the LE 40 millimeter and the LE 50 millimeter. But the trade-off is that those three lenses lowers the contrast of the telescope a little bit. When you use it for photography, that's not a big deal, but when you're using it for visual, it can be a big deal. So even though I had gone through the trouble of finding one of those used S corrector baffles, I ended up removing that from the telescope and putting the original baffle tube in it because I tended to use that telescope as a visual telescope and not as a photographic instrument.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I like about Takahashi is you make stuff that can be added and upgrading previous scopes.
yeah.
It's not like they just one and done kind of thing. Did Takahashi ever consider building a Dobsonian?
Not to my knowledge.
It doesn't seem like their market.
Nah, not really. We do produce some things that a lot of consumers are not aware of. So there is a FET 200 millimeter telescope, and there's a FET 300 millimeter telescope. And FET 200 is a fluorite version of a TOA series telescope, but in the 200 millimeter aperture.
So an 8-inch. So
yeah.
I've seen pictures of that, but those are like university level facilities.
They're custom built. You have to pre-order them and pre-buy them, and the delivery time is usually in excess of 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Takahashi is known for their refractors. Is there anything we should know about the Takahashi mounts?
Takahashi has not produced any mounts in about 4 years. A lot of people are not aware of that. It seems like we have, when we've been going to shows like NEAF, we've actually been displaying Takahashi products on 10 micron mounts and vice versa. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Everybody hear me? Are we good again? Okay, I can hear. We have a big thunderstorm going outside right now, so I'm wondering if it's messing with some stuff.
I thought you lived in the desert. No, I can't hear you again.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. We reset everything, but yeah, we're in monsoon season right now, and there is a monster storm out right now, so hopefully everything remains. So my mic is low. Everything's as high as I can get it. Okay. We'll try to get our way through this. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Does Chris know if there's a current back order time for the FC100DZ?
We have those arriving in every shipment. I believe that the next 2 shipments are completely sold out. And that means that if you ordered a telescope today, it would probably arrive between 4 and 5 months from now.
If you're looking for a DZ, definitely. They're worth the wait.
Yeah.
You can, at times, track them down on the used market. I've noticed they're getting harder to find recently, probably for the very reason. So.
Yeah. People have figured out that they're good for...
I'm assuming for these new future FSQ 106s, whatever replaces it, that they'll all be capable of full frame.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing for the FSQs. So, is there a wide field Takahashi?
How wide do you need it to be?
Yeah, that you might have to elaborate more on that question. I mean, the FS60s are really short little things. They're like less than 400 millimeters. Then there's the 76. I mean, they make a lot of stuff that's less than 600 millimeters.
I'll give you so FCT 65s with a reducer in them, the 0.65 FU reducer, 260 millimeters of focal length. Reduced baby Q, that's a baby Q with a QD-RB reducer, That is 330 millimeters of focal length. After that, you can use unreduced baby Q, which is going to be 450 millimeters of focal length. FSQ 106s are 530 millimeters of focal length. The Epsilon telescope series, there's a 1.5 extender for each of the different telescopes. And so that's going to cover you, from the, say, 600 to 700 or almost 800 millimeters of focal length. And then once you get past that, we have the TOA 130, which is with the flattener, 992 millimeters of focal length, and a TOA 150, natively 1100 millimeters of focal length, but about 10 millimeters less than that with the TOA 645 reducer.
Where'd it go? Oh, how are you guys handling the tariffs?
That is an interesting question. So our approach to tariffs has actually been to lower the price of Takahashi products in the United States. We feel that that hopefully will allow people to see some of our products as a little more value oriented, because we do understand that they're very expensive. You know, Takahashi has a factory in Japan, and they have different distributorships for different parts of the world. So Takahashi America is the United States, it is Canada, it is South America. There is a distributor that is just for Australia. There is one for China. There is one for Taiwan. Optique Interladen is Takahashi Europe. So over time, the values of the different currencies go up and down and stuff like that. So yes, Takahashi products in the United States are more expensive than they are in Japan. But for a long time, the most expensive Takahashi market was actually in Australia. Um, so we thought at a time when other companies were having to raise their prices due to import tariffs and things like that, we've operated at a pretty low tariff rate for the last 15 years. And although it is a little bit higher right now than it was previously, our willingness to lower those prices a little bit has really helped us continue to sell through products.
Nice. It's always nice when you can bring the price down.
Yeah. So, I mean, we literally have a sale right now at 25% off of virtually everything. So,
yeah. It's more a issue of stock. So.
Well, I mean, I'll be really, really honest. A lot of people really have a misconception that Takahashi is a large company, and it's because it's sold in different markets, throughout the world. But the factory is not a big place, and all of the telescopes are handmade from, castings which people actually produce individually. So it is a handmade telescope. It is kind of a boutique telescope, if you will. And yes, it does take some time to get them, because we stopped making certain models of telescopes so that we can produce certain models of telescopes, and that happens with the reflectors, and that happens with, like, when we came out with a new version FCT 65D, we stopped making some of the other telescopes so that we could focus on just producing some of those so that people could have them. And so, yeah, it's never going to be a high production company. And yeah.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Here's a rare bird for you guys. Is the CCA 250 ever coming back? You might have to elaborate what the heck the CCA 250s are.
So the CCA 250 is a 250 millimeter corrected Cassegrain astrograph that operated at f5. It has been out of production for about 5 years, and at this time, there are no plans to resurrect that telescope. And one of the reasons has to do with a few years ago, as part of our process to produce telescopes that have smaller spot sizes and keep up better with modern cameras, is we did update the Epsilon 160 telescope and the Epsilon 130 telescope. So the Epsilon 160 has approximately the same field of view as a CCA 250. It is a f3.3 telescope instead of an f5 telescope like the CCA 250. And the Epsilon 160 has smaller spot sizes across a larger area. So it has spots that are less than 3 microns across a 45 millimeter imaging circle. So it's actually if you want to talk about just sheer photographic performance, the more modern Epsilon 160 is probably a better choice for most people up to the full frame camera size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our oh, I have to answer this one just because it hits something weird. Um, for those of you who are watching, is the Takahashi CCA equivalent to the blanket scope? Okay, so the blanket scope, for those of you who don't know, I did an episode. We had a prototype sitting back here, and it was under one of my daughter's Disney blankets, and we teased it. I found out this week that the blanket scope will never be released. That design has been pushed off. So unfortunately, I will never be able to publicly show you what that scope was. And it's under NDA, so I can't tell you guys about it. So there are other scopes coming. We'll show you when they come out. But the blanket scope, unfortunately, is no more. It exists. I have it, but I can't show you guys. So anyway, I just want to touch on that. Here's a question for you from our buddy Richard Wright. How about something really wide in the 150 to 200 millimeter range? But you guys have the Epsilon 180.
Yeah. Once again, I want to know what
This is imaging.
what focal length that you want. You know, it depends. So we're not going to have a telescope that has a focal length that's 100 millimeters or
Yeah.
you know, or 200 millimeters. You know, right now the lowest focal length is you know with the highest level of performance is the 260 millimeters of focal length.
Oh,
And
150 to 200 millimeter focal length is what he was asking
yeah,
about.
no, we're not. We don't have any plans to make anything that's that wide. That's that wide field. If you will.
You're getting really short there, Richard. You have a 7200 that handles it right there. But aperture wise, if you're doing 150 to 200, you have the epsilons all fit within that.
Yeah. So there's Epsilon 130, there's Epsilon 160, there's Epsilon 180. The Epsilon 180 is a little bit of an older design. So I tend to pitch. If you're interested in an Epsilon telescope and you have an APS-C size camera, really investigate the Epsilon 130. If you have a full frame camera, you should really investigate the Epsilon 160. Those are a lot of performance in very lightweight and very compact packages.
Someone's actually asking when you guys can expect more 160 epsilons.
We have them in stock now. You can go to the website and get one if I'm not mistaken.
Give Chris a call after this so they have them. This will probably be the last question. If you guys have more, you can always call Takahashi and speak with Chris. He'll be happy to answer it. But this is a good one. For someone who has never been exposed to high-end refractors or high-end astrographs, how would one get started and get their feet wet?
If you wanted, say, the ultimate performance in a really small telescope, I would check out FOA 60Q. They're absolutely outrageous for what they are. They do have some limitations because you know, a 60 millimeter aperture telescope only collects so much light. But as far as the crispness and the clarity of the view, you would really like that. If you wanted to get something that was sort of no holds barred and really great all around, then the TOA 130 is going to be that telescope for you. There is a bigger one, but I'm not going to say that I don't recommend it because I certainly do recommend it. But I always ask the question, how do you intend to use your telescope? You know, and a good way to talk about a TOA 130 versus a TOA 150 is if you have a Bortle 7 backyard, the TOA 130 is going to do everything that a TOA 150 will, you know, in your Bortle 7 environment. If you have access to some Bortle 1 dark site all of the time, the TOA 150 has more aperture, it has more light grasp, it has a lower limiting magnitude. And for that use, I would tell you to go and buy a TOA 150. For photography, I'm trying to think about the best way to describe this. So I have taken pictures of the Trifid Nebula with a bunch of different telescopes for several years. Okay. The Trifid Nebula has a red portion and a blue portion, and it has a dark dust lane that's shaped like an X. And right at the bottom of that dark dust lane in most photos, if you're looking at it so that the blue section is on your left-hand side and the red section is on your right-hand side, there's a group of three stars just inside of that little dust lane. And there's not a lot of telescopes that will separate those three stars when you take photographs. They tend to get kind of blurred together, especially if you stack a lot of long exposures. But like a TOA 130 telescope with a flattener on it, or a Epsilon 160, with the right camera on it, does separate those little bitty star clusters. And that leads not just to better separation in those little bitty tiny pinpoint stars, but also all of the little edges of the cloud formation and the dust lanes. They really do come out better. And if you're interested in the difference between those things, I have example images that I've taken on my work computer that I'm happy to send along to the people so that they can see that too.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that question, because we Skywatcher, we've got our Esprits, which are high end as well. Some people might laugh in comparison to that of like Takahashi's, but they're up there. Any major high end brand you're going to work with, give them a call, ask around. If you know someone who has a version of it, maybe not the exact one, play with it, go out and try to observe with it, go to a club meeting and ask around. But when you're going to be investing a large amount of money into a system, whether it's a big Dob or a high-end refractor or whatever, go ask around, do your research, really make sure. It's like when you're buying a car, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars. Really do your homework and make sure this is what you want to do, because you're about to dump thousands of dollars into it. And with Takahashi, it's the same thing. And Chris is there if you want to call and pick his brain. He'll be able to help navigate you. We have our tech team. You have dealers. There's plenty of information out there to help kind of guide you to figure out. But make sure you know what you're trying to achieve, because it helps us better pinpoint strategically what would probably get you to that location, and make you successful. But it's worth it. So
allow me to elaborate on that for just a second. So because we build these telescopes, because we design these telescopes, not me personally, but the guys at the factory, we know everything about them. So you can call and ask questions like, hey, I'm interested in these telescopes, and I can tell you what cameras, if you're going to use them for astrophotography, are going to pair up best with that. Or you can say, this is the camera that I have, and because I know all of the technical specifications of all the telescopes, I can literally say, this camera, this camera, or this telescope goes with this camera goes with this telescope. You can come at us either way, and we're there to help you and to answer those questions. And we understand that these things are expensive, and that's why it's important for you as the customer to be comfortable and have a really good understanding of how these things work and what they do and don't do.
And we get to play with I've played with every Skywatcher. I'm sure Chris has played with every Takahashi and get his hands on. So even if we don't own it per se, we have experience on the scope. So we can be like, hey, this one's great for this. Like his approach to the TOA 130 and 150 is a really good prime example of that. A 130 is probably a lot more usable to a larger group of people. You don't need as big of a mount. If you've never seen a TOA 150 in person, I would make sure you see one.
Yeah.
It does not look like a 6-inch. It looks like a 7-inch. It's a huge freaking refractor. It's impressive, but it is heavy and it's big. So you should be prepared with what comes with it.
You're absolutely right about that. One of the telescopes from Skywatcher that I had investigated for myself a few years ago was your 150 millimeter triplet, the Esprit 150. And our TOA 130 is at least that size. And if you put a camera on it and you put everything, rings and stuff like that on it, it weighs 38 pounds. A TOA 150 is bigger and weighs 50 pounds when you put all the stuff on it. So people really need to have an understanding that this is not the Japanese catalogs have photos of people holding a TSA 120, a TOA 130, and a TOA 150. And it's pretty funny. So,
They're big,
yeah.
especially for what they are. They're big. But well, that wraps up our whole hour. And I know there's even more questions there, but if you guys have questions, please call Texas Nautical or Land, Sea, and Sky. Ask for Chris. He'll be able to answer any questions on the Takahashi stuff you may have. Chris, thanks for spending the morning with us. I appreciate it.
Listen, Kevin, I want to say thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. I did not realize, how much kind of work you guys had to do behind the scenes in order to do this live stream and everything like that. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it. And as soon as I'm off of, talking to you, I will be back on the phone for the next hour or so. So if you have questions, just give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you about them. Okay.
Yeah, he'll be able to download all the stuff you need to know. So, all right, guys. Next week it's What's Up in the Nighttime Sky, starting off October. So please have a safe weekend out there. Go out, use your telescope. Really nice crescent moon. Saturn's coming back up, so get those scopes out. Enjoy it. And we will see you guys next Friday. Really appreciate it, Chris, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night. Okay,
bye.